This is my 1979 Honda C90 ZZ. It's a 6 volt round headlamp model, as you can see, and today I'm going to give you my thoughts on riding it, as this is actually its maiden voyage. I have been restoring it for over a year. There's a series of videos. If you're interested, you can click on the playlist and see the bike's journey. But today I'm going to take it out. It's a nice day, and let's see if it rekindles those old memories of when I had one of these as a boy. And that is probably the reason why most of us buy these bikes, because we have fond memories, either of ourselves riding them or family members riding them, or just remember seeing them as a boy. I was given a Honda C90 back in the very early 70s, and it was my cousin who owned the bike, and he used it for commuting. And when that job finished, these bikes were disposable. You would often find them in bins or in fields or in the canal. People just literally threw them away. They were regarded as worthless in those days. The brakes here, you get that strange sensation of the front end lifting up when you apply the brakes, but you quickly get used to it. Yeah, I cherished that little C90. I was 12-year-old when I had it, and I kept it up until I was 16, until I got a fizzy, and then my world changed again. But up until that point, I could use my C90 to run riot over fields and bings, and it was just great fun. And so a little cobbled road like this wouldn't be any problem to a cub. Now, this being the older 6 volt model, it does have limitations, particularly in today's world, in today's traffic. Back then, nobody really thought about that, nobody really bothered about that, we just got on with it. My father had a Honda C90, and he travelled many miles every day to his work in all weathers. I remember him starting it up, and the snow was knee deep, and it never stopped him. He rode that little cub for miles to his work, and I would hear the roar of the engine or the patter of the engine at night when he came back, and often it was pitch black. See, these are my earliest memories of the cub. And of course, they've been used all over the world. They've literally mobilised the world. This little single cc air-cooled engine with its automatic clutch has transformed the way the world travelled. And we're now at over 100 million units sold. The most sold vehicle ever. The most mass-produced vehicle ever. And we're not even counting all the variants here of the Daxes, the monkey bikes, the CTs. There's so many variants that use that little configuration of an engine. So this hill's pretty steep here, and it's also, the road conditions are pretty bumpy. No problem for this, as you would expect. Now, I'm not saying this lorry ahead is holding me up, but I'm pretty glad it's there actually to regulate my speed going up here. And I think what we'll do is we'll come off this road here. We're going, there's a little track here. It's not exactly a green lane-in track, but it is a public road. We don't have the luxury of down south where it's legal to green lane. It's highly illegal here, and really frowned upon if you try it. But we do have a few little bits like this. And of course, back in the day when it was just field use, it wasn't frowned upon as much as it is nowadays. When you see young boys running about in Sarons, of course they're doing stuff like on the road, and we were doing the same thing, but it's targeted more. You know, there's a lot less freedom these days. At least that's my perception. And my opinion is we need stuff like this for boys to do, and girls, you know, for having them a bit of adventure, a bit of fun. We tend to keep ourselves a bit too safe these days. Again, my perception. But yeah, this is reminding me of the old days of going down the bumpy paths and fields. Unfortunately, that's the extent of it. I'm back on the road again. And I think a lot of us, we don't really realise just how significant this little cub is. The development of it was massive. And when Sirocco Honda and Takeo Fujisawa, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, when they toured Europe in 1956, they were really looking to develop a mode of transport that was going to be revolutionary. And I don't know if they realised just how revolutionary it was going to be, but they certainly put the effort in. They didn't want a clutch, they wanted an automatic clutch. So that was, hence they designed the gearbox, the 3-speed gearbox, where you didn't need a clutch lever. And this was for delivery riders, because they were aware that if you could control a motorcycle with one hand, then that would be a huge advantage to many of these delivery riders and businesses. So that was in the brief. It had to be light, reliable, easy to produce and easy to maintain. But there was a few things in there that they had to do that required a lot of effort, and that was like the 10mm spark plug, and that's where it derives from. The 12mm was just going to not allow enough clearance in the cylinder head, so they got NGK, they commissioned them to make a 10mm spark plug, and that's where they come from. The 17-inch wheel and tyre didn't exist in those days, and it was specially produced for this particular bike, because they didn't want the small scooter wheels. They weren't suitable for a lot of the rough roads. The 17-inch wheel would cope with it so much better, and it does. But in terms of, you know, this bike and using it today in 2025 and in 2026, you know, is it practical? Is it still viable? As an everyday transport machine, I would say no. Not this model anyway. Perhaps the 12-volt later models. In fact, I know a lot of you guys use them on a daily basis, and they're still trundling along, doing the business. They have electronic ignition. This older type has a points system, a very unreliable electrical system, I would say. 6-volt battery, and it has to have a full charge or a good charge before the bike will even start. So if the battery goes flat, the bike won't even start. Mr. Tesco. Yeah, so the later bikes, the 12-volt models, and it's personal opinion, I think they look as good as the early ones with the round headlamp. And then we go into the newer generation, the very latest ones. And I would say, yeah, if you're going to use it as a in-town commuter and you're not doing so much dual carriageway or highway work, then yeah, you know, because they're a bit more power, 125cc, fuel injection, LED lighting, all the things that are added on that make it ultra reliable. And of course, The later ones I quite like the look of because they've went back to the traditional look of the round headlamp and the sort of more stealthy like front. And Honda have been aware that by producing a bike like that, they're going to hook into the old nostalgia, and people remember these bikes, and it gives them a chance to go back. And they've kept much of the tradition, with it being still the air-cooled single cylinder. Granted, it's probably I think it's a 4-speed now. 4-speed, somebody correct me if I'm wrong about that. 4-speed, and a bit more oomph. I think they're about 11.5 horsepower, something like that. And that would make it a bit more palatable on the road, especially with this traffic. Like this position here, this situation is a bit tricky. I mean, we're on the edge here power-wise, but still. So a bike like this, really, if I'm brutally honest, for me is a bit pointless. However, is that the point? Is that the point? You know, I've spent a lot of money on this, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of heartache, things going wrong as restorations do. However, on a sunny day like this, I can forgive it all and just drift back in time a little bit and enjoy it. Yeah, it's just so nice to be back in the saddle of one of these old things again. It just brings back so many memories of what it was like and back in the day. It's just so much fun, and what I like about small bikes is, and particularly a step through, is the ease of use. You just jump on it, and in this case you just twist the throttle. Now, the gears are not the most sophisticated setup in the world, so you've got that clunk as you go, but it's part of its character. And when you get the engine singing along, it's like a nice little flow like this, then it all becomes worthwhile. And I know many people that I speak to, they've been brought up with cubs. Many of the bikers I know who are still riding bikes today were brought up with cubs. They know about cubs. They have that affection for them, even though in practical terms they're well outdated. And even the newer models, I might be a bit controversial here, even the newer models, are they really practical compared with like the newer generation of scooters with the larger wheels, who have more storage, they have more better weather protection, and even the small adventure bikes, even like in the 125 series, these are probably far more capable. But they don't have the looks and they don't have the character. Not in my opinion anyway. So that's why, yeah, I would buy a modern cub. I would have a modern cub, even though I would hardly use it. I would buy one, I would have one. And this one, yeah, I like to walk into the garage and see this sitting there. It's a bit like having a nice painting. Something that reminds you of your youth and of your childhood. So, for the time being, I'll hold on to this little cub and I'll use it, probably sparingly, but I will use it. It would be interesting to get your thoughts on the cub, maybe your memories of what it was like. Would you have one? Do you have one? Would you buy one? Would you go through the pain of restoring one? I don't think I would like to take it into the city. I certainly don't think I'd like to take it in the open road. I would struggle, I would feel quite vulnerable, particularly having a top speed of about 45 miles an hour. I think that's pretty limiting for my use anyway. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video and it's given you some pleasure in seeing a cub riding around some country lanes. I will be building a couple of these small 6-volt engines. I've got a big bore one to build from one of the Daxes. If you're interested in that, you'll find it being released pretty soon. Other than that, take care of yourself and I'll hope to catch you in the next video. Bye for now.